Start. A very good afternoon to everybody. Welcome to this last day of the 5-part internal audit refresher course that WRC had organized. I hope that all of you have been able to take maximum benefit of the entire course. We have tried to run through the entire gamut of internal audit functions and all the SIAs, and I'm sure that it would have enriched all of you. Today we have 2 sessions, the last 2 sessions. The first session is on communication with management and reporting, and the last session is monitoring and reporting of prior audit issues. For our first session today, we have with us our expert faculty CA Swaminathan, who will be taking up the topic of communication with management, SIA 360 IIA Standard 2060/2600, and reporting of results, SIA 370. I think this is one of our, doing a good internal audit is one part, but communicating effectively the findings and in a manner in which possibly the management can really appreciate the gravity of the findings is also very, very important. And clear communication, precise communication, and impactful communication, I think this should be the key to a good internal audit report. And I'm sure all of us will be are hoping to get some really good pointers on this area from Sri S. Swaminathan. So it's my pleasure to welcome Sri S. Swaminathan to this session. I would just take this a minute to also formally introduce sir. So Swaminathan sir is a chartered accountant by profession. He also has a bachelor's in science, and he has an experience of more than 30 years in the fields of internal audit, business process re-engineering, customer life cycles, customer experience management, and has worked in various industries such as telecom, manufacturing, and hospitality. He started off with a Big 4 audit firm. He has also run his own audit firm, and he has been associated with companies such as Indian Hotels, Reliance Communications, Bharti Airtel. He has extensive experience in internal audit, including and has almost covered all the aspects of internal audit. He also has extensive experience in process designing and transformation, and of course, a lot of assurance related experience. With these few words, I introduce to you Shri S. Swaminathan. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, everyone.
The floor is yours, sir. You can take up the session. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me take you quickly through. See, first of all, what is the internal audit? See, to the definition of internal audit has been changed considerably over the last few years. Previously, we used to do the audit, some verification, checking, vouching, and all that, and then close. Today, the internal audit definition itself is changed. By giving the internal audit assignment to the firm, what is expected from them is that how do we either increase the revenue, or how do we arrest the leakage, or how do we reduce the cost. In short, internal audit should be a value addition to the organization. The definition itself is very clear. Internal audit is an independent objective assurance consulting activity designed to add value and improve organization operation. It helps to accomplish its objectives by bringing systematic, disciplined approach to evaluate and improve the effectiveness of the risk management. That is a very clear definition. The expectation to the management is very high nowadays. And after doing the audit, probably for say 1 month or 2 months or 3 months, we are supposed to give our findings in the form of a report to the management. How do we report? How do we to give an effective report? That is where the skills arises. First of all, what is the internal audit report? You can define internal audit report as either it is a result of your internal audit or output of your internal audit, or final deliverable which flags significant observation and action required, or it is a only tangible outcome of your work to justify that you have done the work, and The last part important is that it is also a reference point or the starting point for the next year audit. What are the objective of internal audit report? The objective of this is a part of the SIA 360 also. The objective of issuing internal audit report is share with the client or the auditee what are your significant findings based on the procedures which you have carried out, and allow the management to understand the issues and take corrective actions in a methodical and comprehensive manner. Why I am saying this is that I have seen in the over last 30 years, some of the observations which I have received when I was working in probably many companies, I was not even able to understand what exactly has been written in the report. So that is because I will take you through the various examples for you so that you understand better. That is why I have written specifically the second point, allow the management to understand the issues and take corrective actions in a methodical manner. The report writing should be extremely very simple language and communicate to the point, not more, not less. And third one is provide sound basis for any assurance being provided by the internal auditor. Basically, the overall objective of the report is that to highlight the effectiveness of internal control and the risk management process to enhance the performance in line with the internal auditor. We can actually classify the report into 2-3 subcategories like high importance, medium importance, and low risk or low importance category. I will also tell you how you have to classify that also. What is the internal audit report continuation? See, it is a dissemination of the results of the internal audit and reporting the findings to management in an essential part of internal audit. Reporting of results needs to be done with a certain level of uniformity and should have clarity and agreement regard to the nature and assurance. The most very important is that clarity should be there, whether irrespective of the observation, how small or how big it will be, unless and until it is written very clearly, you should write the way observation in such a way that auditee can understand the content without your presence. He should not come back to you for clarification. So all desired information, all relevant information should be available in every point which we report to the management. The internal audit shall also be issued within a reasonable time frame from the completion of the internal audit work. This is most important point of SA 360. The reason being is introduced is that many companies, they take their own time, probably 2 months, more than 3 months also to give the report. So by the time the report comes, then people will forget and the importance of the report is getting diminished. That is why I would prefer the report to be given at least in the form of a draft initially within 10 days time, and you can discuss the draft report, make any changes, whatever it is, then you should be in a position to release the final report, ideally not later than 3 weeks to 4 weeks. That will be the correct way. Though it is not mandatory, but ideally it is better to release the report, to close the audit under any all circumstances within a time frame of 3 months from the date on which you complete the field work. Internal audit is required. This is a communication with the management. This is also a part of SA 360. Internal audit is required to have a two-way communication with the management. You have to very, very clear. It's very clear that you cannot write whatever we want to write. We have to clearly write what we want to write. At the same time, we have to ensure that the client is accepting that or is understanding that in a way so that he can take corrective action. All communication must be very simple, clear, and appropriate in line with the agreed process and timelines. The process should also give various modes. It can be in various modes, like you can be a verbal, or you can be a written report, or in the form of a picture or video or something. And channel of communication, it can be either phone or hard copy or email or file change. Previously, we used to give hard copy. Now, everyone is insisting for a soft copy of the report. Wherever the last point is important, wherever the essential matters are concerned, suppose there are very critical information or something like that, the communication, the SIA says that the verbal communication should be subsequently converted into a writing so that seriousness can be understood and the management can take a serious corrective action. What is the purpose and objective of the report? The primary objective of the report is that whether the formal audit report or a brief memo is to communicate a message to reader that yes, we have done the audit and we have got certain findings and we are putting it to the for you to undertake a corrective action. How do we do this? In order to do this effectively, the writer must consider the audience who will receive and respond to the report. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that whatever we are communicating, it should be easily understand. The reader should easily understand the content of the report. It should not be complicated. It should be very simple, straightforward, and to the point. And use persuasive writing to convince your reader to accept the recommendation. You should write the observation in such a way that it should not backfire and it should be right and it should be justified to the auditee. There are three steps in writing the report. One, you write a draft report, then editing, and then submission of the final report. How do we write an observation? Each observation, before you write any observation, however big or however small it may be, you should have 5 C's. One is the criteria, condition, cause, consequence, and corrective action. You take any observation, whatever you come across during the physical field work, and split that observation into these 5 subcategories, and you will be able to frame the observation very nicely. I will give you an example also. Before that, what are the 5 C's? What is a criteria? Criteria is what should be the case, and what is the condition, what is the current status, what is the current scenario, and what is the cause, and what is the reason for the current case, and what is the consequence, and what is the impact, what is the risk, and last one is the corrective action. By giving this, you should also give a suggestive answer so that the management is aware of that yes, what they are doing is wrong and they can do it by correcting. Yeah, all observations, please remember that all observations which we report should necessarily have impact in one column and the suggestion in the next column. Then only the observation is complete. We're giving merely a report without the impact and without any suggestion will not be of any use. So I will take you one example. There is a company balance sheet, one expenditure is there. The company has incurred about 9 lakhs of expenditure, but they have not provided for the expenditure. This is a very simple. So you can write, while reviewing the month end, this is a classic example I'm giving you. While reviewing the month end closing process for a public limited company for a second quarter, we found that the process is very ad hoc without ensuring adequate check for completeness and timelines. Example, expenses of 9 lakhs were not paid for. How do we split into? Everybody knows that because you have not provided provision, then your P&L bottom line is affected to a greater extent. It's overstated. So how do we write it? What is the criteria? Adequate control should be built into the process to ensure completeness, accuracy, and timelines. And what is the condition? Certain expense condition is that 9 lakhs expenses have not been provided. And what is the cause? Adequate review procedure, like nobody is checking, nobody is reviewing that. Because of this, this has happened. This is the cause. And what is the effect of this? Overstatement of because you have not provided for expenditure, profit has been overshot and to the extent of 9 lakhs and affecting the bottom line. And what is the corrective action? Develop a month-end closing checklist. Second, provision entries for each month should be reviewed by an independent person. And third, implement parking and posting concept in the system. If this is done, then this problem would not have come in the first place. So all observations, basically you try to understand in 5C concept: criteria, condition, cause, consequence, and corrective action. You will be able to understand and present it in a better manner. 3 C's of editing the report. First is draft, and I will give you what are the points to be considered in the subsequent slides. And the second one is, after you write the draft report, how do we edit it? Concise, complete, and clear. 3 C's we should understand. What is the concise? Identify the key findings and priorities. There is no, see, the report must always be in a very chronological order, from high priority to low priority in each department or each division or whatever it is. And the second one must be determine what types of information are needed to support each finding. And the third one must be, it should be very consistently clear, apply the standard for return communication. Why I am saying is that many reports are coming in the form of, see, first they write in a different manner. First of all, the low risk is coming, say 1,000 rupees or 1,000 rupees, it is not there, that is coming up, and the high value risk items or revenue leakage is coming at the end. See, why the top priority should prioritize observation is that when you are submitting a 30-page, 40-page report to the top management, nobody will have time to read through your report in full. Maybe the people at the GM level or officer level will be able to understand, but the people at the committee level or at the board level, they will expect you to give the content in a very simple manner consisting of 2 or 3 pages, so that they can understand, they will judge where they stand in the organization in terms of the work done by his team. So that is the objective of prioritizing the observations. I will tell you in the subsequent slide through example also how to do that. This is a very important slide for editing the report. Always take a printout and review the report in hard copy. The reason being is that when there is a difference between seeing the report in the computer and seeing the report on a paper. It is a psychology, but it has an effect. Don't begin to edit your report the moment you finish during it. Allow some cooling time. There is no point in writing the report and trying to edit it immediately, because your mind will not work. Because whatever you wanted to say, you have already said. Then have some break of half an hour, 1 hour, 2 hours, whatever it is. Have some refresh yourself by taking a coffee or snacks or something like that. Then come back and with a fresh mind and then see the report again. You will get some value addition. You will get some points which you have not done earlier. Third point is that before you begin the editing, review the needs of the reading audience. What the client wants, that is more important. Unwanted returns can be deleted because it is still in the draft stage, sent for editing. You can always edit it by deleting it. Reconcile the objectives listed in the report with the findings, include to ensure that the reader's expectations will be met. Read through the entire report at a normal reading to evaluate the flow and mark all discrepancies, but do not revise until finished. Run through the report from top to bottom, first page to last page completely, and then think and then do the editing. Don't do in between. It will not have any effect. And remember that keep version. You will never know when did you make a change earlier. In one of my report where I was probably the head of a department, I had 17 versions of a report. The reason being that it is a very critical and complicated report. We had a lot of issues in that particular year. And every time when I go and discuss with my boss, with the board, they keep changing. And we keep changing the content or the style or the presentation, everything. So if I keep on overwriting, then the earlier version will not get saved, and I will not be able to know what change I made when I made the change. So that is why I always save the report every time when I change it. However the small the change may be, I always change the version as version 1, version 2, version 3, and in each version, where did I make a change, I will put a marker or I will put a highlighter, and then I will see so that I know in this version I have made change in this place. In this version, I have made change in this place. It will be easy for everyone to understand that the future, maybe down the line, 1 year or 6 months or 7 months. That is always advisable to keep versions. Finally, allow another cooling period and read from the beginning again. Once you read the 40-page report or 50-page report, then relax for some time, then take it up fresh, maybe tomorrow morning or next day morning or something like that. Run through. Probably since your mind is freshed up, you will be able to come out with more ideas, or maybe the additional points may be added or something like that. When you read the report, you will come to know, then you can add it. Finally, get a review done by the person senior to you. This is more important. Many times what happens, the person who is doing the report at the manager level, he writes the report and he just sends it. I am very sure I have come across so many people, audit firms, but at least in 40% of the cases, the partner review is not happening at all. This is a very sorry state of affairs, but that is a fact. This is based, I may be wrong, but this is based on my experience in the last 25 years. I have to take it up. The report comes to me directly from the audit firm, but unfortunately, some of the cases, the partner is not even aware of it. It is not discussed. So this is an incorrect way of doing the things. So partners or the senior directors or whatever it is, I would like them to take ownership of each report, however big or however small may be, then get yourself involved and then finish it. Then it will have a positive impact from the client side. Mark my word. Report writing. Be specific and precise. See, it's very clear. Don't say more, don't say less. To the point. This is the first objective. I will give you one example. This is what one of the observations which I received. I did not understand anything, but I have rewritten the observation. Then I will tell you what I wrote. This is the audit observation which I have received from the audit firm. The audit review revealed that payroll was only being checked by HR and not independently checked by finance as a part of monthly payroll process in order to improve the control efficiency. There is no data, there is nothing, anything is available. It's a general statement. Okay, it is a general process weakness, but I did not understand anything. So it took almost 1.5 days to go back to the audit firm to catch hold of the person and then talk to the seniors and then refer and then come back to me. So that lot of time is getting wasted because of the incorrect way of writing the observation. Now you see that report. Very simply I have written. We noted that payroll was not being independently checked by finance department. That's it. It's very clearly, simply I have written. I will give you one more example also. Subsequently, what makes a good paragraph? It contains only one idea. It has a very clear and easy to read sentence, and it should be short, and it should be unity and logical connection. This is the second example I'm giving you. This is also, again, it has come from the people who did the audit, and you read this based on, it's a very lengthy observation. Based on the approved sheet, the compensation benefits department, that is the payroll, prepares a summary and forwards the same to the finance department at the time of bonus payout is due. However, the finance department does not independently verify the accuracy of the bonus summary received from the compensation benefit section with the summary Excel sheet approved by the CEO, CFO, and other department heads. Individual departments prepare the bonus calculation sheet for agreeing with the respective employees and submit these to HR department. Finally, the overall bonus for the year is approved on Excel sheet by various people, CEO, CFO, and all that. I have not changed any single word in this, I have just copy pasted from the one of my reports which I received. Now you see my version of this. I have rewritten the report myself. Of course, when I change it, I always take the approval from the auditing partner, because otherwise it is not fair on our part to touch the work done by the other people. Individual departments prepare the bonus calculation sheet after agreeing with the respective employees and submit the sheet to the HR department. The overall bonus payout is formally approved on the Excel sheet by CEO and other departmental heads. Based on the approved sheet, the compensation benefit department prepares a summary and forwards the same to the finance team. However, the finance department does not independently verify the accuracy of the bonus with the compensation benefit section and approved by the CEO. The first up to the point due, the third line is that you are trying to explain what is actually the happened. And then you are coming to know what you have to do. So I have covered both what exactly has happened, what has been should happen. So that is why you have to keep 5 C's in mind: criteria, cause, condition, consequence, and recommendation. If you put this, I analyze this observation in 5 C's, then you will come to know that everything has been covered there. I will take you through the example how to write an observation also in the subsequent slides by giving various examples also. I will show the report also, some of the reports. Internal audit reporting effective writing hints. This is a very important slide. Use outline to plan what you will say and refer it to constantly, and try to arrange the points in a sequence and put the most important one first. When suppose in a particular department, say HR, and you are auditing in HR and payroll, probably if you have 10 observations, and if you have some 2 observations, you have the process leakage or additional expenditure incurred or some fraud has happened, put that point in the first. Why? I will tell you in the subsequent slides. Second, start where your readers are. Don't try to level higher than your readers' knowledge and explain good. And the third point is more important, which is sometimes lacking in the audit reports. Don't use the words, expression, phrases knowing to the people with the specific. For example, based on the results of statistical test, it was discovered that the error rate was 7.2% with a 95% confidence level. Nobody will understand that. In a way, what we have to write is that everything should be covered in an observation. Like if your sample is say for 2 months, April and May, and if you have selected 100 cases, and if the 100 cases, you have got a problem in 10 cases, and very clearly say on a sample during the sample review in the month of April and May, out of 100 cases, we have a problem in 10 cases, bracket error rate 10%. So here the sample month is also given, sample number is also given, and what is a problem also given. So everything is covered in a very simple observation. Instead of writing 7.2% and 95%, you write the numbers, and then within the bracket you can put the error rate. That will make sense. The fourth point is stick to the point, refer to your outline, and constantly question does it relate to the point in outline. Even if you have a 0.5% or 1% benefit of doubt, just delete the observation. It should not backfire, or you should get it clarified. What I'm trying to say is, when you write an observation, you should be absolutely confident that this observation is right and ready to fit to go. It should be 100% correct. Not even a single person you should have any difficulty or any thought process or any difference of opinion or something like that, or doubt. If you have doubt, either you go back and check the observation and come back, rewrite the observation, or if you are still not able to get the comfort level, please delete the observation. It is better to delete one observation with a small thing, and rather than getting a sorry figure at a later on, because it will impact it will judge the judgment of the audit firm also. Be brief when you write, and don't say when. Very straightforward, simple English and easy to read and understand. What happens sometimes, the audit report is finally given to the client. The client, 50% of the client, they will not go through the audit report immediately. They will take their own time, probably after 1 week or 10 days, they will read. So once they open the report and read the report after 10 days, naturally, if the observation is not in the order, they will have some doubt and they will come back to us. And once they come back to us, they don't know how to do, whom should approach, whether they should approach the person who has done the audit, whether they will approach the manager, or whether they will approach the person who has written the report or discussed the report or signed the report. Whoever it may be, they also will not keep in mind, because already 10 days, 15 days have gone, because they are into other audit work and assignment. Unless they refer to the particular work paper, so they will not be able to understand, they will not be able to clear the doubt of the auditing. So that is why the importance comes. That is why I always emphasize that audit report must be very clearly written. The person should not come back to us and ask for clarification. That is the extent of clarity required to write each and every observation. That is number one. And number two is that your work papers must be strong, so that it can be referred to at any given point of time in the future. Please, I am requesting everyone, please give utmost importance, lot of importance to further work paper, and so that you don't know the value of it now, you will come to know the value later when something happens. So that only will help us to cover up our shoes. So please prepare and file the work paper in such a way that all the relevant information are available, however small, however big it may be, are available with respect to any particular observation. That is the most important thing I would advise. And second, present points in a very logical order. It can be either, probably some companies, what they do is they give you all the policies and procedures or processes, and they expect you to do the audit based on the process or policies. So if that is the case, so you write your observation based on the policies in order, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Suppose you write 1, then don't go to 2, and then again don't go back to the 1. First clear all the process. There is no hard and fast rules here. Only thing is it should be in a logical order. That's all. Once you write something and you cannot add something, and then again you cannot go back to the form. So logically you write, one is over and set aside, then take the second one. So the observation, if you have running observation of 25 line items, 25 observation, make sure the policy number 1, 5 observation, policy number 2, 3 observation, policy. Don't write policy number 1, 2 observation, policy 2, and then again go back and write third observation of policy 1. It does not look nice. So it should be in a very chronological order. And avoid mysteries in writing in report. Hit the reader with the main point in opening sentence of each paragraph. It should not backfire. You should make an observation very strong that yes, this observation is right and they should be justified. In a written communication, the basic tools are word, sentence, paragraph, and effective use of these tools, and make the difference whether the message you intend to give reader received. This is very important. I personally sincerely follow this slide for the last 20 years. That is why I said, okay, let me include this slide also to the benefit of the students. Use bullet and be consistent with the format through the document. If you are using one particular bullet, that bullet point should be constant everywhere. Or if you are using a number, then use that number everywhere throughout the report. And second, be consistent with the use of font type and that. First, if you are using Arial, you use Arial. If you are using Garamond, please use Garamond, because different people, different audit firms, they have their own style of reporting. It doesn't matter, whatever, but don't mix up. Some pages Garamond, some pages Arial, some pages Caliber. So all that mix out, no good. If you are using Garamond, font number 12, size 12, please make it Garamond 12, 500. If you see mine, I use always Garamond. All my presentations, it is only Garamond. I have not changed anything. Third, always do this spell check. This is one of the major problems which we receive from the audit report. I see many spelling mistakes, grammatical mistakes, in English mistakes in the report. Please try to avoid, because it speaks the quality of the firm at the end of the day. Remember that it is not necessary that you should have 100 observations running to 45 pages or 80 pages. Even if you give a 10-page report and very nice report with a very beautiful English with crystal clear points, that carries more weightage of the form rather than the form. I always believe in that way. Cover everything, and even if you have a small report, doesn't matter. At least make the point very crisp and very strong, and then justify what you have done is right. That will be definitely, it will have a very good image on the client side. Use the word draft as a watermark. If you are issuing a draft report before editing, please use watermark as draft so that the client will not get confused. And once you issue the final report, either you put final or don't remove the draft. Text and line spacing to be consistent. This is another problem. Sometimes they use single line space, sometimes we use double line, sometimes you use 1.5. Please avoid. I will show you that my Word file also. You will be able to understand better. Alignment of heading and subheadings. This is also very clear. Be consistent with the use of capital letters and small letters. Don't mix up. Be consistent with the use of words, department, function, financial. See what happens. CFO in some companies, head of finance. Some companies they call it a financial controller. Some companies they call it as a CFO. So you cannot, in one company, what we have done, you address CFO. Then you cannot carry the same to the next CFO. Although he may be at head of the finance, he has been designated separately in a different manner. The company A may be head of finance, may be designated as financial controller, but here he may be designated as a director of finance. Both are head of the department, but here when you are auditing the second company, you have to use director of finance. You cannot use CFO, you cannot use head finance. You always use director of finance. Clear distinction, correct distinction, the designation. And the function also. Some people they call it as a human resources, some people they call it as a manpower, some people they call it as a HR. It all varies from company to company. Depending upon the company you audit, depending upon the slang they use, you have to put that in the use so that the client will understand better. You cannot expect the client to understand the report based on what we write. Make sure all the numbers have the corresponding currency, and we have currencies. What happens sometimes if you are writing the report in the thousands, make it constant as 1,000. If you are writing it as a rupees in lakhs, please make it rupees in lakhs. If you are making it just rupees, please put rupees everywhere, right from top first page to top. In some observation should not be in million, some observation should not be in lakhs, some observation should not be in 1,000. It will get confused. Now you have seen how to write the report, how to edit the report, how to do the final report on that. Now, how do we present the report? This is more important. To present the report, what are the things which are essential? First is you should have a cover page. Second, the table of content. The third one is the objective. And the fourth one is the background information and scope limitation, observations, and summary of results, detailed results, and annexes. If everything is covered in whichever manner you feel like, it will be bigger, so that client will not come back to you and ask for any details, because all the details which are required are available in the complete report which you present to the client. How do we write this report? In the first page, if you see this, I will show you separately. Don't worry about this. The first page I will contain what is content is top. I will show you separately. How do we write the observation? See, the observation can be written in two ways. It all depends upon the practice followed by the audit firm and the client wants in whichever way he wants. So we have to give according to the way in which way. Some people they use PPT, some people they use the Word document, some people may use the Excel, or some people may use the combination of the Word and the PPT also. If you are using the Word document or the PPT, what you can do is ensure that all the accounts are covered. First, the serial number should be there, then observation should be there. Whenever you write the observation, it should have the impact also. And when you write the impact, you should also say that what is the suggestion. And when you say what is the suggestion, when is the date of whether it is accepted by the client or not, and then what is the date of implementation. All that is required. Minimum 5 to 6 columns will be required. Unless and until all the 6 columns are filled up, then it is not a correct way of it, because you will end up in problem when you do the audits for the second time next week. And I have given in the PowerPoint, if you see on the left hand side, I have given so many spaces to write the report, the observation. All the relevant information like sample selection, sample month selection, sample count, and what is the problem we have faced, and which what is the error rate. Everything should be written. And that is why I have given huge space on the left hand side. And after reading this, what is the risk? Risk you minimize in the form of leakage, revenue leakage, or excessive cost, or whatever, monetary loss, whatever. So you in a very simple manner, 2 to 3 lines max. And what is because of the impact, what are you trying to say? Recommendation. So recommendation should also be given. And what is the response to the audit observation from the client side? In my view, the response from the audit should be only one-liner. Agreed, either since implemented or date of implementation. Suppose you are giving an audit, say for April to March in the month of May, you say that all this you are right. The auditing comment, auditing response should be point agreed. We have started implementing since April this year, or we will be implementing probably by June or July. So other than this, nothing should be there. One liner, beyond nothing else should be there. That shows why next time when you do the audit, you will take it up that as a previous year observation and select some samples, and then you can do the audit. I will explain to you in the form of an example. And at the bottom, you should clearly specify whether it is a policy issue or whether it is a people issue, whether it is a process issue, and whether compliance or non-compliance. What is the efficiency and what is the effectiveness of this observation, and what is the risk, whether it is a high or whether it is a low or whether it is a medium. High risk is always classified as the top priority, and it should be marked as red, and the medium risk can be marked as probably yellow or orange, and the low risk can be marked as a green color. That is why I always mark H as a high on the top middle portion. This is one way of writing the report. Other way of writing the report, I will give you example in the Word document. Finally, what is the report writing? What are the do's? Report must be structured. Second, use simple language. And third, you should be very specific to the point where you are starting and where you are ending, what you are trying to say and where you are ending. Always remember, when we write any observation, first give in the first paragraph, if you are referring to any policy or if you are referring to any process document or something like that, what exactly the process or what exactly the policy says. You write 1 or 2 sentences in that. And then next point you come saying that above is the process which should have been followed, and below you write how many cases it is not followed. By doing so, people will understand, okay, the first one is a policy which has to be followed because the policy has been approved and put in place by the company. But this, for that particular process, it has not been done. So the third paragraph will be error rate. I have seen 100, but in out of 100 cases, 20 cases, it has not been done. So my error rate is 20%. Remember that all points can be reported if the error rate is more than 5%. If it is 3% or 4%, I am not saying that you should not report, but you can take a call. It need not be necessary. It's my view, because again, it depends upon the individual view. Third one, fourth one, identify the root cause of the problem. What is the root cause of it? You should go for each and every observation. You should go to the root cause of the problem and understand where exactly the problem, and then report that as the first. And give value-based impact. Always I prefer that monetary loss of 1.5 lakhs or 1.5 crore. If you put that point in terms of monetary loss or revenue leakage or whatever it is, it will have a huge impact. Value based not only be quantity, but also it should be a control man. Control labs also, it is because of the control labs also, you can also mention that because of the lack of control, this problem has arisen. So that you can also put. It will have more impact to the point, the report. The next point is give adequate instances with the population and coverage details. What you have done in each and every observation must have what is the sample month, what is the sample count, and what is the error rate, what is the error, what is the problem, how many cases there are problem. Every observation should have these 4 components for easy or better understanding. That's number 1. And secondly, your work paper should very clearly have what are the sample months you have selected, what are the sample, how many are, what is the population in that particular area, and what is the sample you have selected, what is the basis of selection of your sample, and then you write down the observations. When you write the observation itself in the paper, in a full scale paper or something like that, divide the paper into 3 portions, make 7 columns. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 columns. Divide it, make it 7 columns. On the top left corner, maybe what is the name of the client, what is the period audit, and who is doing the audit. On the right side, you put one circle, page numbering 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 9. On the bottom, you write what is this, whether it is a HR, whether it is a payroll, whether it is an accounts department, whether it is a food and beverage or front office, whatever it is, the department which are doing the audit. And come to the full scale paper, divide it into 7 columns. Why 7 columns? The first 4 columns, okay, maybe 60% of your work paper can be used to write the observations. And the 20% of the column, you can put it for review by your seniors. He may write, you have written something observation in the first 4 columns, and the 5th and the 6th column, you leave it to your partner or you leave it to your senior director, whoever is in charge of the assignment, for his review. Whether he will ask you to do more checks, whether he will be saying, okay, what is the point? He will ask him, he will write his review point. And the last one is 7th column is 4, 5, 6 over. The last column is report or drop. You write that. When you say R, this point has to be reported, or you can put cross mark, or you can say drop, because this point either it is not correct or it is not worth reporting. So the senior will decide to drop it. So that is why it is always prefer make the work page very nicely into 7 columns, First 4 columns should be meant for observation writing. The column number 5 and 6 should be meant for review by your seniors. Nobody has the right to touch that column. And the last column should be the deciding authority by the senior, whether this point to be reported or whether this point to be updated. Why you have to do this? By doing so, even after 3 years, 4 years, if you take the work paper, then you will understand, yes, this point I have written this and my senior has written this, and we have decided to drop the point. And at the top right, person who is doing the audit, person who is reviewing the audit, name should also be there, and the date also should be there. So that if you see that work paper, everything you will get it. What is the name of the company, and what is the period you are doing the audit, which is the department you are doing the audit, and what is the page number, and what is the who is doing the audit. I mean, who has written the report, and who has reviewed the report, and whether this report is reported or not. So you don't have to go anywhere. All are available in your work paper itself. All annexures to have value and totals. See, this why I'm saying is, suppose you come across it. Nowadays, today you are saying basically like, okay, right, you are running the audit through the system-based audit. And when you take some, say, 10,000 cases and you have problem in 1,000 cases, you don't have to give all the 1,000 cases as an annexure. If you give 1,000 cases, the entire 1,000 cases in the annexure, it will run to some 2,000 pages. It is not required, absolutely. So the annexure should always contain, each annexure ideally restrict to 1 page. You can say it in the point, saying that out of things so many it is there, but a sample cases are given in annexure 1 or 2. Link that annexure to the particular point through a hyperlink, so that when you touch that, it will go to the annexure, and when you go to the annexure after reading that, if you touch that, it will come back to the observation. So when you do the observation, out of 1,000 cases, probably you can give 20 cases. You give annexures in such a way that put your 1,000 cases in the descending order of the amount and take only the top 20. By doing so, why I am saying you to put down in the descending order is that suppose the total value of 1,000 line items is say about 5 lakhs. I am very sure first 20 items, if you put it in the descending order, that itself will constitute more than 60%. So it is enough. Instead of giving the entire 100% running to pages, you give 1 page consisting 60% of the value which you are covering. Put it in the always in the descending order, the observation in the annexures, and then take the top 10, 20, whatever it is, depending upon the percentage you get, 50, 60, 70, 80%, and just leave it as it is. Remember in such a way that restrict the observation, the annexure to 1 page for 1 observation. Max to max 1.5 to 2. Don't exceed the 3rd page. It will not have any good impact. And the 3rd one is figures given in the points should tie up with that in the annexure. That is a major problem. See what happens, sometimes you are writing something in the report and annexure is having some amount. So there now many cases there is no correlation between the amount mentioned in the annexure and the amount mentioned in the point. That should not happen. That is why I am saying whenever you write any observation, please do the hyperlink and ensure that what is shown in the point is always matching with what is shown in the annexure. Annexure reference in the report should match with the actual annexure number. Suppose you are saying you are writing one report, point number 1.3, annexure, you refer annexure, maybe 1 point, you can use the same number 1.3 or annexure A, B, C, D, and whatever your method following, you ensure that whatever you are writing here, it matches with the annexure number. If you are doing 1.3, there also it should be 1.3. If it are referring A, there also it should refer A. And when you go to the annexure, you write almost in the paragraph also refer to in point number so and so, page number so and so. Then people will understand, okay, this annexure I am written for the observation mentioned in point number so and so in the page number so and so. People will be able to correlate. And you can also do the hyperlink. Issue to be segregated. Don't mix up the issue. The multiple issues in a single observation is not acceptable. Each issue must be very, very clearly reported. And right words should be used in the points. Please avoid jargon. Don't use anything which is unfamiliar, unpopular, or something, however thing it may be. Don't show your anger or anything on the report. It should be, we are being given to do some work. We have to rest. We should understand that and keep it in mind and write what is our scope and what is it. Based on that only we can write. We should not say anything beyond that. We should not cross our limits. Right word should be used in the points. Terms. Terms nomenclature used by the auditee should be used in the points. What is there in the terms, in the scope, or in the thing, that should also be used. Nothing, you should not use a different terminology. It will not be good and it will not understand also. Important points in the annexures should be given in instances in the main point itself. Suppose, see, if there are only 10 or if there are only 5, you have noticed, instead of giving it as an annexure, you can give it in the main report below the report itself. It makes sense. There is no need for you to make it an annexure, because annexure, it makes a sense only when it is running to few numbers, 20, 25. Otherwise, if the numbers are too small, single digit or 10 or something like that, you can easily give it in the below the report itself. You don't have to give an annexure. Every point should have adequate supporting papers with the relevant backup and documents. After you write the report, go back to the work paper, and I remember I told you the last column is report or drop. When you are saying or, you under this you write yes, reported, point number so and so, 1.5, 2.5, 3.5, like that, against each observation. Why? By doing so, you can also have a look into your work paper, saying that wherever your senior has classified that to be reported, you ensure that it is reported and you have not left anything to report. That is the idea. It is a cross verification. Once you finalize the report, before you issue the report, after the issue of the report, after the report is discussed and agreed and the management comments are given, you have the final report. Before you get the report, before you sign off the report, please go to your work paper, take your file and write against each observation wherever R is reported. Yes, put the, under that you put the report reference, so that you will know, yes, I have reported everything what my senior have done. I have not missed out anything. This is the final thing. What is the don'ts? Only 4-5 steps, but very critical. One of cases not to be reported. See, I see many cases where we report 5 cases, 10 cases, 2 cases. See, any business is not perfect. We need to understand that. If there are some one of very odd items, or just leave it. Don't bother about it. Don't waste your time on to that. You can leave that observation. It is not worth reporting. And second, repetitive language should be avoided. And third, don't mix up different points in the same. Each point should have the each observation. Mixed is not allowed. Have mixed issues, don't make it. Lengthy annexures to be avoided. Maximum 1 sheet is enough, or maximum 2 pages. Beyond which, don't run the annexure beyond 3rd page. It's not advisable. And contradictions to be avoided. It should not contradict. That is a major thing, because it should not backfire. Once you contradict yourself, then you are expected to verify. You are expected to ensure that yes, contradiction is not. Then if you have it still, you are not comfortable, please delete it. Don't put it in the report. It is not worth it. You cannot have any contradictions in the report. These are all the report which I have theory part. Now I will take you to probably some of the examples on how the report has to be done. You are able to see? Hello? Hello.
Yes, sir. Believe, sir.
You are able to see the Word document?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. See, this is another example. The first where I said earlier, the report must be classified into several stages. Okay. This is the first page of the report, which gives the covering page. On the left, right, on the left top corner, you write which is the name of the unit or which is the name of the factory, which is the name of the company you are doing the audit. And what is the period? It may be September to August or January to December or probably April to March. You put that also. And what is the company limited? If it is a company is different from unit, then you put X company limited, and probably you can put a processing unit or manufacturing unit or Surat plant or probably Delhi plant. You can put in that unit. And internal audit for the year, which year you are doing the internal audit, 21, 22 or final. Don't put only 21, 22, month, year and month, year, starting month and closing month. And each report must be classified into minimum 3 or 4 categories. The first one is the executive summary. The second one is the sign-off page. And the third one is the previous year observation. And fourth may be the current year observations, and 5 will be annexures. I have not done this here because this is the first year observation. That is why there is no previous year observation. That is why I have not written this. And the first page should also contain what is the audit start date, what is the audit date, and what is the audit period, and audit who is the which audit firm, your X and X, Y, Z and company, chartered accountants, and who is the partner in charge, and how many people have done the audit, who is the team, what is the audit team, maybe 4 people name, A, B, C, D. You can put the name also, people also, and how many man days you have taken. And suppose you have taken man days is 120 man days. Remember that you are expected to have a calendar also as a part of your work paper, mentioning very clearly that you have to write on the rows. It is advisable to rows in department, HR, payroll, food and beverage, front office, manufacturing, and all that. On that, this will be on the row. On the column will be person A, person B, person C, person D. This is the summary, and each person will have its own date. Suppose, for example, person A you take 1st March. Audit start date is 1st March, and the end date is 31st March. You write 1st March, 2nd March, 3rd March, 4th March, like that. What is the start time? What is the end time? What is the total hours spent? Suppose on 1st March, I have started at 10 o'clock and put up at 5 o'clock. So my time is 7 hours. So like that. So one person will be, suppose if you take the person's name A, at the end of the day, 31 days, I will have, say, probably he will have 200 hours spent. So that will come in the summary. Which area he has handled? He has handled 200 areas. He may be handled 100 hours for HR and 50 hours for front office and 50 hours for FMB. So on the top sheet, I will put against that particular A in the row column, I will put 100, 50, 50 for each department. So it would, at any point of time, I will know, if I look into the summary, I will know how much time has been spent by the team as a whole, and the subsequent pages will tell me how many time has been spent by each individual in that assignment. And what is the total days on which what is the date on which you give the draft report, and what is the date on which you discuss the report, and what is the date of final issue of report, and what is the total number of pages. When you say total number of pages, it includes annexures also. Don't consider only the main report, annexures also should be. That is why the top itself I have given what is the executive summary, page 1, report sign off page 2, observation page 3 to 25, and annexures page 26 to 50. So the total pages should be 50. See, this I'll come back to you. This is the executive summary. When you write the executive, see, before you start the main report, after your sign off page, you take this as a second. The sign off page will be like this. This is the second page. Once you write the top page, come to the second of them. Each report ideally should be signed by partner in charge plus at least one or two people from the client side, maybe the financial controller or the general manager. Generally, it is two people, the top one and the second top person. They sign the report normally. In the taking ownership and the responsibility for the report. So that is why I put it the name and the designation. What is the partner name and what is the partner designation? Here also financial controller will sign. Here general manager will sign. This is the third. And third page should always be executive summary. What is executive summary? Executive summary is nothing but the content of the observation is summarized into a single line, so that people at the top level, they may not have time to run through your 25-30 line item pages, and they will have only probably run through your executive summary portion. They will understand, okay, this problem, this issue has this issue, right? Okay. So that is why when you write the executive summary, you try to prioritize based on any form, maybe the revenue leakage or high importance, medium importance, and low importance risk, all that. So priority 1, priority 2, priority 3. I always write not on the monetary terms, but also I always write based on the risk. What I write is I always expect people to write what is the high risk areas, that is priority 1. Priority 2 will be for me the medium risk, and priority 3 will be low risk. Low risk, I won't even be bothered because my focus will be on high risk. When I say focus on high risk, my 60% of the problem will get solved. That is my view. What do you write the executive summary? When you write the executive summary, you write into department wise or division wise. This division of selection of, there is no hard and fast rules available. You can select in whichever way you want. This is purely depends upon the client. I audited a hotel in Mauritius about 1 year back last year, and this is the way in which they wanted the report. They wanted the report to be first the HR, and then they wanted the report in front office. They wanted housekeeping, and they wanted F1B and all that. They have given me some order at the time of scope itself. The report should consist of the following departments in this particular order. So that is why I don't have any choice. I have to comply with the requirement of the client. I have put it in the report. For each person, for each category, say for example, human resources, I may have about 15 observations, but I have taken only the critical observations, 7 or 8, and I have put it. This is an executive summary. This is one way. Or the second way is that suppose you are, if you want to put all the observations in the particular one form, that is also possible. There is no hard and fast rule. But in my view, if you ask me, it is better to write all the observations in a particular department in your one-liner and give. Whether it is important or not, but write it based on top to high level importance, lower level importance in that particular. Suppose HR department, you are having 1.1 to 1.7, say 7 observations. The first observation should be very high, second low, like the based numbers of the, depending upon the importance, you can classify and then you can write it as an executive summary. So by doing this, you can run the page into so many, my executive summary will not be more than 2 pages. So I have restricted only to 2 pages. Probably 45, entire 45 observations is covered in a single liner in probably in 2 pages instead of giving the page a 45 page report or 35 page report. Why? People will understand, client will understand, okay, he will not have time to go through each and every line item. And if he reports, he will classify, he will pick up, the head of the department will pick up, and then they will form an opinion where they stand, where the company is standing in terms of their functioning, operating efficiency and all. So they will get a fair idea of the observations. This is why I have given it. How to write? So if a delay ranging from 129 to 324 days, carrying out pre-employment medical checkup in 4 out of 8 cases checked. The total employees in the HR itself is only 12. It is a small unit, 5-star hotel unit. And out of 12, I have taken sample as 8. And out of 8, 4 have an update. Why I classified as important? Because pre-medical checkup is more important so that you don't end up you don't end up recruiting people with a disease problems. That is why it is always, because companies always do 2 checks. One, for contract employees, they do the background verification, and for regular employees, they do the pre-medical checkup. Why? Because they will know whether they are selecting a right candidate or whether they are selecting a candidate with health issues. That is the reason. So without having a pre-medical checkup for 4, I do not know whether the employee is really fit for the work or not fit for the work. So that is why I feel that the policy itself is saying, this is not my view, this is the policy. The policy, if you see the HR policy, the policy itself says that all employees, after the appointment letter is issued, they should go for a pre-medical verification before the final appointment letter is issued. This is the one of the policy document itself says. It is a clear violation of the policy. That is why I have mentioned it here. And the second, see, I will tell you the example also. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. As I said earlier, I have returned the report in the Word document. Why? Because the client wants it in the Word document. They don't want PPT. They want it in the Word document. So I have designed the report in the Word document comprising all the 6 columns. 1, serial number. Second is the audit observation. And third one, what is the impact? And what is the suggestion? And what is the action plan, or whether it has been accepted or not accepted, and what is the target to implement it. So I have covered everything in one stroke. I said the pre-employment check. I have written, first of all, what I have done is I have classified the report into 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 categories. The first category is the human resource. The second category is the front office I have written. So in that human resources, I have put one separate row for that. And after that, in the human resource, I have classified as 1.1, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, 1.7 like that. So I have given it like 1.1, 1.2. What I have written is a pre-employment medical checkup. That is a heading, single heading for that observation. As per the SOP, I always write as per SOP number so-and-so, employees are required to go through pre-employment medical examination prior to signing the employee agreement to prove that they are physically fit for employment. Our verification of employee personnel revealed ranging 129 to 32 days in getting the medical checkup in 4 out of 8 cases. By this is the observation. And what is that implication? Non-compliance of SOP. What is saying in the operating procedure, they are not following. And number 2, possibility of not selecting a wrong candidate. And what is the suggestion? Policy must be followed. Pre-employment check must be done. And what is the client says? Agreed. We will strictly follow this. And what is the who is the target? HR said, I will take the responsibility and put this into immediate effect. So next year when I do the audit, I will go, I will check, I will see, I will take some fresh sample and see whether this point has been done. If this point has not been done, then I will show it as a non-compliance of the previous year observation in the next report. Because last year itself, when this point was audited, it was highlighted, but next year they are supposed to implement, they have agreed to implement, but they have not implemented. So it is a even more severe point for me. Having agreed to accept but not implementing is a nonsense. So we have to highlight those issues as a high priority, high risk items. And here, if you see that, I always say that what is the risk, what is the policy, the first paragraph, and the second paragraph will be what is your observation. So by doing so, you will know, okay, as per the policy, the second one, what I am writing is not followed. That is the objective. And I have given annexure one also. If I go and click this annexure, it will go to the annexure one, because I have classified point and annexure number also same, because there is no problem. Annexure point number 1.1, 1.1. Here, if the point number is 1.7, it is 1.7. The continuity will be maintained. And wherever it is very clear that I will do a hyperlinking also, so that the annexure also, it will run to only one page. It will not run to several pages. And if I go to the annexure at the end of the report, I will mention it as, see, HR, delay in pre-employment. Because if I don't write this delay in pre-employment, I do not know for which point I am writing this annexure. So I will always write annexure 1.1, and I mentioned it that we should write it, sir, in which this annexure is referred to this point, delay in pre-employment. Okay, delay in pre-employment. Then you go to the pre-employment. So these are all hybrid. So that by doing so, on a 45-page item or 35-page item, you will understand very clearly what exactly is the project. This is how the report should be done. And the next report I will take you is that after giving 45 pages report, nobody will have time. So the executive summary has been even further simplified by taking only some key points, say 5-6 points, into a management summary. We call it as a management summary, and we put it. This management summary will definitely not run more than 2 or 3 pages. Okay, and out of this, what you write is, first you write the management summary, and on the divide this into 2 parts. The left hand side should be only observation, and the right hand side should be what is the impact, and what is the way forward, and what is the audit committee. This goes to the board, or this will go to the audit committee. In the first report also, in the first paragraph, if you see, there are 2-3 paragraphs for each and every observation. In the first paragraph, you see that I will see the content of the policy itself. I will say this T07 or a rate code, as per this rate code, this has to be done. This is what the policy says. But when I write in the second paragraph, what I have written, this process which has been mentioned in the first paragraph has not been followed. That is why I have written here, review of observation and the cases it will be in 19 out of 50 cases, it has not been done. And what is that I am trying to say? The unit has discount rate and so. So this is the policy, first paragraph, second policy, non-compliance, and what is the impact by not following this observation in 19 out of 50 cases. I have revenue loss of 2.25 lakhs. And because I have less 2.5 lakhs, what is the way forward? They say they will follow the process. They will put up the responsibility. They will take the responsibility of assigning some person into do that. And then this point has been agreed. Audit comments, please remember that it should always be agreed, implemented, or since implemented, or date of implemented. They should not write anything other than this. If they are writing something else, then you should not accept. You should go back and revise it, because it is not an observation, because it can lead to a contradiction. This is also another point XYZ. I have written to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Wherever you say first, always in every point, you first always write what is the policy, it's the content of the policy in a very bullet point number, and then what is your observation. And if you say all observation, you can very clearly say that I have, if you see this observation, a sample review of 75 bookings in this particular rate code. Which period I have selected? I have period selected November to December, and I have taken one more month, February. A random selection of number. I have selected that in 11 cases, the difference was noticed running to 14 days. So I have given sample month and sample name of the month I have selected. Then now sample count also I have given, and what is the error also given, so that everything is in a simple way. And all this in the 14 cases, since it is running to several pages, I have given it as an annexure, and then this annexure is hyperlinked to this there. And what is the impact? Impact will always be non-compliance and adherence to the policy. And they will adhere to the policy and they have agreed. Everywhere you see agreed will be there, agreed will be there, date of implementation will be there. They will not say anything other than the agreed. Agreed. Going forward, delay would be minimized or reduced. And when you go to the annexure, it will be hyperlinked. I will show you how the sample document also. I have only 5 minutes left. I will show you. See, I have been saying that for each and every area you do the audit, you have always have what is the sample you have selected and what is the month you have, what is the extent of coverage you have done, so that it will be so tomorrow if anyone question comes, you are saying something, what is the extent of your coverage? If somebody asks, then you should be able to answer. So what you do is you always have a Word of Excel document saying that what is the area you have selected. This area of audit is purely based on scope. Whatever you have been asked to do in the scope, it should be here. And for that each scope, what is the extent of coverage you have done? I have covered 50% of the business transaction. In suppose if it is a payroll, I have done payroll verification for 3 months. Which month also you can say January, December, and probably October I have said. So by doing so, each line item, you know, for all the activities for which you have been asked to do the work, you have the sample. 2 months, 1 month, 5 months, whatever it is. This is another way of recording so that tomorrow you have justification to show it into the auditee in case they want something. At the end of the day, in a nutshell, I repeat main points like, first of all, keep it in mind that audit must be done in the allocated time frame. If you say it should be decided as per the scope, if you are doing for audit for 30 days, if you have agreed to do 30 days, you please do it in 30 days time. Probably you can extend it by another 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, right? And then after the audit is over, as my suggestion will be that as and when you do the audit, whenever at the end of a week or at the end of probably one division is over, you summarize your points, and then first level of discussion you have with the people who are in charge of that. Then make yourself that comfortable with the point, get it accepted, and then you can write the report. Because my suggestion will be, even if you before you write the draft report, you must ensure that the point which you have come across should be accepted. Otherwise, if it needs to be any verification, because I am very sure at least in 50-60% of the cases, the auditee will try to avoid this point, will try to show some document something, but you still have a chance to go through that document if he shows something, and then convince himself before you put that point in the formal observation. And in the work paper itself, when you write the observation, I said the first 4 columns will be your observation. When you write the observation itself, you make a note of it. This has been discussed with the client, that name of the gentleman, Swaminathan, on 5th August 2022. Then tomorrow, you will not get dispute. So if suppose if he disputes something, you can say that you can go back to that gentleman and say, I am putting it in the report because we have already agreed orally on 5th August when I discussed this, when I highlighted this, when I brought this point to you for discussion. You showed me some points. I have modified this report and modified the count also. And this is the final version. And this is what you have agreed. So that when the draft stage itself, there will not be any problems. You will not, as an audit firm, will not face any difficulties or any issues when it comes for discussion. Because when you go for discussion with the top management, probably you cannot cover up your face at that time if any dispute arises. That is why all disputes, irrespective of the size, may be small, large issue, it is better to get this repeatedly agreed once, twice, thrice before you put it in the report. The final report should only consist of purely agreed points totally undisputed. Nobody can dispute any point, either from the audit side or from the auditee side. Only all points agreed finally should become, and the date of implementation should be there. That my please ensure audit response is restricted only to one line, agreed, date of implementation. That's it. No other dispute should be there. All other dispute, you please recheck once, twice, thrice, 4, 5 times, whatever it is, and then finally close. This is how the audit is. And please remember, audit, after you come out of the audit, you pack up the belongings. You should not be able to go back to the client under any circumstances and then redo the audit. Once you pack off and then you come back, that is a final. You should be in a position to read the report, release the report. Beyond which there is no more checking is allowed. It will not be entertained. And whatever the Xerox you want to take, whatever photocopy you want to take, I suggest you please take the concurrence from the auditee before you take the photocopy, because we cannot, as an outsider, have no right to take client's property without their concurrence. It will not be viewed favorably. It will be objected by the client if they come to know tomorrow. Please tell them, I need this document, image document, or this document for my work paper. I am taking photocopy, sir. I am keeping it in my file. That's it. Be transparent to people, to the auditee. Then only the value of the firm, value of the person doing the audit goes up. With this, I conclude. And any questions you can ask, I will explain. Hello? Am I audible? Hello?
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Okay. Because I am not hearing any sound. That is why I don't know.
No, in the Q&A, I cannot see. Participants, do we have any question for Swaminathan, sir?
You can note down my number, and in case you come across anything, you call me my number. I don't have any problems.
Sure, certainly, sir.
You can note down my number. My number is 9322106512. You can WhatsApp me also.
Absolutely.
Any doubt, any point of time, I'll be probably maybe helping throw some light on it.
Sure. Participants, thank you so much. So this is CA Rudesh Pankania, Regional Council Member from WRC Mumbai. First of all, thank you so much, Swaminathan ji, for an excellent presentation on our today's topic. And we at WRC are extremely glad and thankful to you for accepting our invitation, for guiding our participants to you, sir. And thank you so much on behalf of the entire Internal Audit Committee of WRC, sir.
Thank you very much, everyone, for listening to. I hope it is of some use to everyone, because all the presentation which you saw today is written based on my 20 years of experience. Each and every point where I have come across, and then I used to write and then compiled in the form of a PPT today for the benefit of the students, so that when I did the audit, I was not aware of all these things. At least it will be some useful to the people who are doing the audit now. That is keeping that point in the mind. The entire report was written based on the practical issues which I faced on a day-to-day life. I hope it might be of some use to everyone.
Yes, Swaminathan sir, can you just mention your mobile number again? There's a participant who has asked.
93221 06512.
Sure. Thank you so much, Swaminathan.
Anytime, any question you can ask. Unless I'm driving, I will be able to clarify. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you very much. So, participants, I think back now for our second subtopic for today, we have CA Hemlata Jhawar ma'am. Hemlata ma'am, are you there?
Yes, I'm very much there.
Yes.
Welcome.
Mishra ji, yes. Mishra ji, can we just start directly? Mishra ji? Okay. Sure. So our next subtopic is specifically a presentation of IIA findings before the audit committee, and CA Hemlata Jhawar ma'am, who's a lead partner in the assurance and advisory practice at KNAV. Ma'am is a commerce graduate, a fellow member of ICI, LLB, DSI, and the CIS UK, having a prior experience and working with Big Four CA firms at PwC and the Ernst & Young. She has practical experience of Indian generally accepted accounting practices, that is the IGAP, and the IFRS regulatory inspections and reporting. Talking about the professional expertise, she is the member of India's committee and the IFRS committee of the WRC for the year 2021, contributed to various ICI publications on the related subjects, has over 17 years of diverse work experiences, including providing auditing advisory clients spanning mutual funds, non-bank financial companies, stockbrokers, venture capital funds, for gap convergence projects, due diligence, regular contributor to technical accounting publications. She has handled the quality review board reviews firm-wide for the audit quality reviews at EY and PwC. Has experience in all across for IGAP, RBI regulations, SEBI regulations, IRDA, IFRS as well. She has led the IFRS diagnostic projects for a large NBFC and 2 PSU banks in India. We welcome you on at WRC for this amazing webinar being organized by the Internal Audit Committee of WRC. I would like to thank our chairman, WRC, Mr. Murtuza Kachwala, the entire office bearers, and the committee chairman, Rahul Parikh sir as well. And thank you so much, all the participants. I think without taking much time, Hemlata ma'am, over to you. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you so much for the nice introduction.
Very
And
impressive.
hello. Thank you so much, sir. Getting such compliment from such a senior person really encourages us. Hello, everyone. Hello, participants. Today, I'm going to cover SIA 390 with respect to monitoring and reporting of the prior audit issues. And my prior speaker, Mr. Swaminathan, had already touched upon the importance of taking the follow-ups on the prior identified internal audit issues and taking a status update on that, and like, how do you report that to those charged with the governance. So that is going to be elaborated in this particular session by me. So thanks, sir, first of all, for making the preface and like touching upon in the previous session about this. And now I take this opportunity to further throw additional light on this, specifically why is this relevant, what are the objectives with which the particular standard has been set, and what are our responsibilities as an independent internal auditors, where we are required to take the updates, if required also do certain follow-on procedures, and then report to those charged with the governance. So with this preface, I commence my session. I will just share. I have made a small presentation. I'll just share my screen. Am I allowed to share my screen?
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, and I hope so now everyone is able to see it.
Yes.
Yeah, all right. Thank you so much. Just 1 second. I'll just make some view setting on my screen. Yeah, just a moment. Yeah. All right. So there is a standard on internal audit 390 with the name monitoring and reporting of the prior audit issues. In my presentation, I will take you all through the objectives set by the standard. Also, the procedures that are required to be followed by the internal auditors to demonstrate the work performed by them with respect to taking the status update and the monitoring and the reporting of the earlier identified audit issues which are still open for closure. Also, the various process or the system that the internal auditors should be putting in place so that they can demonstrate by way of documentation, by way of a procedures checklist and all that they have performed in connection with the taking the status updates and performance of their procedures on the audit issues. Those were identified in the earlier audits or the earlier audit period, and which are pending implementation or pending action from the management. Also, I'm going to share some of illustrative trackers and the dashboards which can be used or which can be leveraged for making the appropriate presentations to those charged with the governance. So with this, I start. The objective set by the standard is basically standard is imposing a responsibility on the internal auditors that we should be taking, we should be in respect of the open audit issues which were raised in our earlier audits, or where we are an incoming auditor and the previous audits were done by external firm or the company's in-house corporate team, and subsequently the responsibility of internal audit has been passed on to the incoming auditor or the incoming audit firm. In that case as well, we have to take a status update on what all audit observations those were raised in the prior audit years and agreed for implementation or the corrective actions by the management, and whether those observations are concluded or not concluded, or closed or not closed. If the observation is already closed by the earlier auditor or yourself, in that case, you don't have to reopen it unless you come across certain findings or certain exceptions when you are performing the audit of the same process or the areas. So in this connection, for the purpose of the reporting on the reporting of the corrective actions taken, not taken, or the actions are delayed at the management's end, what all things the auditor is required to do. So while the implementation of the corrective actions is the responsibility of the management or the auditee, the monitoring of those corrective actions that has been agreed by the management is on the internal auditors. And in this connection, they are expected to take the status update, check wherever relevant, validate wherever relevant the implementation of the action plan, and then report their findings to those charged with the governance. It may be a board of directors in case it's a private limited company, or it may be an audit committee where it's a public limited company or a listed enterprise. So depending upon with whom the engagement has been agreed, the scope and the responsibilities has been agreed by the internal auditors, the reporting requirement and the communication is required to be required with those charged with the governance, be it board of directors or the audit committee. Also, where the auditor finds that there are undue delays from the management's end in the implementation of the agreed action plans or the corrective actions, an auditor feel based on their own professional judgment that such delays which are unexplained, which are unreasonable, needs to be escalated to the appropriate level of the management. The auditor should be should be doing that as a part of their existing audit process. The timely reporting of the status is really relevant, and that goes hand in hand with the timelines that the management has agreed and communicated to the internal auditors as well as those charged with the governance. So in nutshell, if I have to conclude what is the objective of this particular standard, the objective is check, validate wherever the management has already implemented the corrective action in responses to the audit risk that has been highlighted by the internal auditors, and the recommendations those have been proposed to the management, and management has agreed to implement those recommendations by way of taking a corrective action. In that case, we need to validate that, and wherever management has not adhered to their commitment or agreement of taking a corrective action, and there are delays, the delays may be reasonable, the delays may be unreasonable, it may be acceptable, it may not be acceptable. In either of the cases, it has to be communicated to those charged with the governance, be it board of directors or the audit committee. Also, sometimes it may so happen that if management has, like, if there is some significant changes in the process, management would say that earlier we agreed that the corrective actions will be taken, but consequent to the change in the process, now that particular action is no more relevant. And in that case, once and for all, they drop that recommendation. So if any such situation arises, in that case also, as an auditor, we should be professionally informing those charged with the governance, the background, what the changes has been introduced in the process, and the basis of the management evaluation, and to what extent we concur or we do not concur to the management evaluation, and dropping off that particular recommendation which was agreed for implementation by the management in the past. After the objective, we move on to the monitoring of the prior issues. So as an internal auditor, what are we expected to perform, or what are we expected to do to demonstrate that we have a proper process as a part of internal audit engagement, planning, execution, and conclusion? So what is the appropriate process that has been followed by our firm or by ourselves with respect to monitoring of the prior issues? And as I communicated in my previous slide, that it doesn't matter whether the open prior audit issues, which is pending action at the management end, or which has been action during the period when we have been, we are the incoming auditors. So whether the observation arise from our own prior work, where we are the continuing auditors for the next succeeding year or the continuous years, or where we are the incoming auditors and there are open issues from the earlier auditor. So either of the scenario, it is our professional responsibility that we take a status update on that and keep the management, the senior management, the board of directors, or the audit committees informed about the status update on the earlier open audit issues. In this process, first of all, we should be agreeing on the timelines with respect to the management responses on the audit issues. Those have been highlighted. In the previous session, there were quite a few of the illustrations had been shared by Mr. Swaminathan with respect to the kind of audit observations that he had come across or that he had foresighted. And in respect of such kind of observation or any of the internal audit findings, depending upon the risk rating and all, we first of all categorize the risk rating depending upon the magnitude, the amounts involved, etc. of the audit observation, and then we seek the management responses on those findings. If the management is agreeing that yes, they are agreeing to our observation, and it is not one of the observation, it is not one of the manual lapse of the process, etc. In that case, definitely the management will agree, and they will provide some timelines by when they will be taking the corrective actions. It may also so happen that some of the internal audit findings may, which is categorized as a low risk by the internal auditors, having regard to the priorities set, having regard to the other pressing commitments that the management is having, they may say that some of the low risk observation they would want to live with, and some of the high risk and the medium risk observation, definitely they would want to take the corrective action. But having regard to the time available, having regard to the resources and the cost benefit, they may prioritize. And obviously, as an internal auditor, also we should also be insisting to prioritize the high risk or the critical audit findings and the corresponding corrective actions that the management is required to take. So in this connection, we need to first take the management response, agree on the timelines by when they expect that they will be able to take the corrective actions, and subsequent to that, by when internal auditor can perform a follow-on audit procedures on those particular processes or those particular audit findings, so that whether the corrective action that has been taken by the management is serving the purpose or is it mitigating the audit risk that has been highlighted by the internal auditors. Agreeing on the timelines, evaluation of the management responses and the verification of the responses will get covered in this when we perform the procedure where we agree on the timelines, and then we perform the follow-on procedures. subsequent to performing of the follow-on procedures, then either suo moto, we can include this in our presentation of the current audit period. Generally, wherever we have been doing internal audit, we first give the brief overview of what were the open audit issues of the previous audit period, what all audit issues have been resolved during the current audit period, and whether that has been tested by us or not. If that has been tested by us, are we satisfied or are we closing those issues? So those kind of update is being given to the audit committee before taking them to the current audit issues or the new findings that has emerged during the current audit process. So generally, this is what is being followed by us. At the same time, many of the corporate audit committees or the board of directors, they also generally inquire for what has happened, the status update on the prior issues, and thereafter what are the new findings for the emerging from the current audits. The frequency and approach of the monitoring will be decided and determined by the internal auditor in consultation with the management, because if there is a quarterly internal audit happening, then definitely the frequency will be at least on a quarterly basis. You take the status update unless some of the action the management has communicated that will be happening after a 6 months period. Obviously, in that case, you will not be having a status update every quarter, and it will be on a semi-annual basis. However, if management has agreed that some of the corrective actions will be implemented in, say, 2 months time, a month's time, or 3 months time, on those definitely you can provide a status update to the audit committee or the board of directors in your quarterly presentations. Generally, in case of listed companies, there are quarterly internal audit presentations happening by the internal auditors. And in case of public limited companies and the private limited companies, it depends upon what the expectation management is having and what is the size and the nature and the complexity of the organization. And basis that, it may be semi-annual or it may be an annual audit presentation to the those charged with the governance. With this, I move to the next one, where we develop the system for monitoring and reporting of the prior audit issues. As an internal auditors, first of all, we should be we can use some sophisticated tool if the client is really complex and the size and the nature of operations. It's a multinational organization having domestic as well as international branches and all, and quantum or the number of branches are also very high, and some of the branches may be very critical. So in these kind of complex clients or the complex processes which the client may be having, we may have some automated tools, either if it is being also used by the management. So we can take a use of such tools. We can also develop some in-house tools. At the same time, we can also monitor the progress and all using a Excel, because generally in case of I have done internal audit of private sector banks with hundreds of branches and all. So generally if there is some tool, nothing like it, you can develop some macros and all. But otherwise, in case of a reasonably sized organization, be it a private limited company or a public limited company with not multiple branches, you can track the prior audit issues in the Excel tracker, provided you have captured your observation in an appropriate manner. And some of the illustrative tracker I have included in this presentation, I will take you through. And those trackers we have maintained in Excel only. We did not use any sophisticated tool. But yes, if the organization is really complex, also your team is very large, and there are overlapping internal audit scope and the processes and all, definitely then we should be developing some tool, which tool can gather the progress and track what all hundreds of observation we may be having on the internal as an internal audit findings, and the various agreed timelines with different periodicity. So those can be tracked using a Excel macro, and there are some tools which is available in the market. In the process of capturing the overall progress or the status update on the prior audit issues, generally we record the observations, we record the corrective action that has been agreed by the management, the risk rating, etc., and also the timelines what the management has agreed. When the timelines has gone, definitely we approach the management, or as per the understanding, even management may approach us that this we have implemented, now it is running successfully, the corrective action has been taken, and now you can come and test it or check it, and then you can conclude in your finding that you would want to close this issue because now the corrective step or the action has been taken, and what is the current status. Many times it may so happen that because of some or other priorities, the agreed timelines or the timelines that has been communicated by the management is delayed. And if it is delayed, then definitely again it is our responsibility that we also keep informed those charged with the governance, and just don't assume that the management or the mid-level management or the junior level management, who were the process owners, who were responsible for implementing the corrective action, has communicated that to the senior management or the board of directors or the audit committees. Such kind of miscommunication do happens, where we assume that okay, the way they have updated us that this particular thing has got delayed because of so and so reason, and we agree to the reason, like during the COVID period, definitely a lot of internal audit findings and the action pointers had got delayed because of unavailability of staff or shortage of staff, or the lockdown imposed restrictions, etc. So we assume we should not make the mistake of assuming that the mid management has also communicated this to the top management, and top management is already aware of it. As a independent people, as an independent consultant, it is our responsibility as well that we communicate it formally to the those charged with the governance. Also, we keep a tracker, we keep a documentation that this has been communicated to us by the process owners, and this is what we have included in our presentation to the audit committees, where we had given them the status update. So in the future, as and when if somebody says that you forgot to inform us or you forgot to update us on this particular thing, what has happened to this, and some of the critical findings may lead to a fraud risk or a significant risk and all. So something goes wrong, at least you have documentation to support that appropriate time we had updated this with respect to the delays that has been communicated to us. Wherever we find that the delays are unreasonable or the management is not so keen to take the corrective action, and they are just taking the time in implementing those with not the right intention that they would want to implement the findings. These are very rare cases, but yes, these type of observation also do occur. We come across such experience as well. So there again, it is our responsibility that we sensitize to the top level management that there are undue delays, and what are the exposures those are the company or the process is exposed to, which is resulting from such delays of implementation of the corrective action by the mid-level management or by the management of the organization. I move on to the next slide. The documentation part, very, very similar to the documentation, how relevant it is in case of statutory audits. The documentation is really, really relevant in case of internal audit as well. And when we say the documentation, our documentation of should not only support the finding that we have identified based on the sample test or based on the testing of the 100% of the population, depending upon what is the scope agreed with the management. Certainly we should be documenting the monitoring plan as agreed with the management. So if the management say on a quarterly basis you keep us informed, then definitely the plan will cover that. If the management is saying this is the escalation procedure, and if you don't get the responses on a timely basis, then definitely those kind of key terms also should be documented. And the protocol of the escalation should also be documented by the internal auditors as a part of their audit documentation. The audit is confirmation of whether the complete implementation of the corrective action has been done by them. So that confirmation should be documented in our work papers. If the implementation of the corrective action has been audited by us, definitely the follow-on audit procedures performed by us, the sampling, the testing, etc., as we do for the regular internal audit work, the same needs to be done for the follow-on audit issues as well. And also the part or no implementation at all of certain audit observation, be it a low risk item or be it a medium risk item, should also be documented with the management responses. The documentary evidence supporting the work paper of the additional procedures is very, very key, because that will help us in concluding whether the corrective action that has been taken by the management is serving or is adhering to the recommendation that as internal auditors we have made to the audit committee. And those recommend, and in case the corrective action plan is not in line with the recommendation, we need to also conclude and inform to the management, including those charged with the governance, whether there is still some exposure to the process or to the organization still remained because of the part or no implementation of the corrective action at the management side. The escalation communication certainly will help us in demonstrating that we have highlighted the appropriate delays and all to the appropriate level, as and when, like, no, it is deviating from the agreed timelines by the process owners. And the periodic status update report, which commonly we call as action taken report, issued by the management. In that, like, what is the status update with respect to the issues that has been implemented, or it has been further delayed, or there is a revised timelines. If it has been implemented, whether it has been tested by us or no, or whether we feel that we should be testing it or no. Because in respect of all the audit findings, as per the SIA 390, we are not required to perform the follow-on procedures. We may, first of all, classify our findings, whether it is a high risk finding, whether it is a medium risk finding, or it's a low risk finding. Chronologically, if I go in respect of high risk findings, certainly there is a responsibility on the internal auditors to perform the additional procedure or the follow-on procedures and check and conclude and report to the top management whether the implementation of the corrective actions is yielding the desired result that has been recommended by the internal auditors. So if, say, for example, the critical audit finding was relating to the inventory valuation, the system is not performing the inventory valuation as per the policy set by the organization. And if the policy set is, say, weighted average, and system is performing the inventory valuation on a FIFO basis, and that you have highlighted as an internal auditor in your finding, and since the magnitude and the impact of incorrect inventory valuation will be there on the financial reporting of the organization, in that case, certainly we are going to classify this finding as a high risk finding. And if management says that they have made necessary updation in their processes, in their systems, and now the system is computing inventory valuation on a weighted average basis. In that case, rather than just taking a management confirmation that they have taken the corrective step and implemented the appropriate updation in the system, and now the system is giving the valuation on a weighted average basis in line with the company's policy, we need to also check it on a sample basis, whether actually system is computing it correctly, as against during the past audit where we found that the system was performing the inventory valuation on a FIFO basis, deviating from the company's policy. So this is one of the, say, critical finding where we have to do the follow-on procedure. There may be some kind of, say, medium risk finding, where we may decide based on our professional judgment and also the expectation of the stakeholders, be it audit committee or the board of directors, to what extent we would want to revisit that, or we would want to perform a follow-on procedure on the medium risk category audit finding. So say, for example, in case of a medium risk where we have recommended, just a simple example, if I have to cite, suppose there was no periodic physical verification of the property, plant and equipments. So while we are not reporting or we are not getting into the CARO reporting with respect to the physical verification of property, plant and equipments, but having regard to the company's size and the nature, and having regard to the company's policy, if there was a deviation we observed as a part of internal audit, we did not find the documentation for having the physical verification on a timely basis, and those we reported as our finding, and that finding we categorize as a medium risk, and subsequently management confirmed to us that they have implemented the system of the physical verification in a phased manner, and this is a plan, and in a particular year or in a particular period, this is what is going to be covered by them. So in that case, if the management is providing us a physical verification report, which is in line with the plan that the management has agreed with the audit committee or with the board of directors, we don't have to go and re-perform the physical verification. We don't have to go and revisit the physical verification, but certainly we have to look at the documentation, the underlying documentation, whether management has retained the physical verification report, whether the physical verification report has been conducted by the appropriate level of authority, and what the kind of discrepancy those have been noted in that, and whether those discrepancy have been appropriately adjusted in the financial statements or no. So those kind of things we categorize, say, as a medium risk, and where we look at the documentation and we conclude and we close the issue in consultation with the senior management. If senior management says that that particular plant, you please, we would want you as an internal auditor go and independently also re-perform the physical verification, then depending upon what you have agreed with the management, you may want to do that. But otherwise, these kind of findings or the medium risk findings, even with the documentation available, we can corroborate that yes, the corrective action has been taken, and we can conclude at that stage, depending on what the professional judgment, exercising our professional judgment, and depending upon the professional call that we have taken as the internal auditors. The third type of findings is a low risk finding. In case of low risk findings, say for example, there is no checklist with respect to the monthly closure of the books of accounts, and because of that you observed that some kind of provisioning were missed out by the management, or there was some error in the tax computation that has been done by the management. So these findings you categorize as a low risk because those were one of the lapse at the management's end, and which can be mitigated by having a appropriate checklist. So in that case, when the management confirms to you that yes, they have implemented the checklist, you don't even have to go and look at that checklist or vouch or validate that checklist whether it is serving that purpose, because as long as management has confirmed to you there is a checklist that has been implemented, and based on your dialogue with the process owner or with the finance controller, if you get to know that yes, there is a checklist and all, then you may not be required to perform additional procedures in respect of this kind of low risk finding. The other example of say low risk finding is updation of the MSME, say in case of creditors. So if the company had the process of taking the declaration and identifying the MSME creditors, but it was happening on a manual basis, well, as an internal audit recommendation, you suggested that it should be done at a static data level or static data maintenance level, and this should be triggered in the system itself, so that you can, when you run the creditors report or the creditors master, in that you can identify that yes, it has been performed by the management or it has been implemented by the management. Again, you can rely on the management representation in respect of the low risk findings that you have categorized. So these are the things where you take the professional call to what extent you want to do the additional procedures. If you are doing any additional procedures, then as per the documentation standard, which is applicable to the internal auditors as well, you should be having appropriate documentation supporting what additional procedures you have taken, and also the documentation supporting the professional judgment you exercised and the professional call you have taken for performing the extent of the additional procedures to conclude or close the prior audit issues based on the corrective actions that the management has implemented. I will be running you through certain dashboards and the trackers. But prior to that, in case if anybody wants to have any clarification or have any questions on the various procedures and the system with respect to the tracking of or monitoring of the prior audit issues and the reporting on of the status update on the prior audit issues, I'm happy to take that. As I will move on to the tracker that I have prepared for this particular session. So this is in case if you would want or you like to have a graphical representation of what kind of internal audit observations were there, what kind of corrective actions that the management has agreed for the implementation, and whether those corrective actions have been implemented, it has not been implemented, there is something overdue, etc., etc. So those kind of graphical representations we can do in this is one of the way where we can do this. So here if I say that in a graphical form, I have covered that out of 13 internal open internal audit findings coming from the prior audit issues, coming from the prior audit findings, there were 2 findings, those were implemented. There were 5 findings, those are overdues. And what is the amount of or the delays in number of days or the percentage, etc., you can further extend it to that. There may be certain findings, those are not even due when you are reporting as a part of your periodic reporting to the audit committee. So these are like kind of graphical representations where in a narrative form and in a pictorial form, we communicate to the management for their better understanding. These are the various charts that we have prepared. We can make a use of this. There are n number of charts available in Excel where we can populate the base data, the statistics, and basis that then we can decide on what chart we would want to present to the audit committee or to the management. In case if we come across the recommendation that has been implemented, certainly we should be also explaining to the audit committee or to the management whether we have tested those recommendations or no, and if we have tested those corrective actions in responses to our recommendations, whether we are satisfied or not. If we are satisfied, we can inform to the audit committee that now this issue which has been carried forward from the prior audit is now concluded, and obviously it will go off from the action tracker report of the next presentation. We can also summarize various findings, overdue findings by various level of process owners. So for example, here the overdue recommendation by the department. So here it is lying at the deputy chief executive level. Here it is lying at the monitoring officer level. It may be the finance controller level. It may be at the production in charge level. So there can be various level, various person responsible or the various departments. So those kind of some pictorial graphical representations coupled with a appropriate or a crisp commentary can be made in the dashboard that we present to the audit committee. Yeah. The other dashboard is with respect to documenting the delays in the number of days and the quantum of the audit issues. Generally, here we cover only the high risk and the medium risk findings, which are overdues. And if the overdue is in which range, so sometimes the overdue is for 3 months or sometimes it is for 30 days. So depending upon what is the quantum of the overdue overdue of the implementation of the corrective actions, we can also use that in a pictorial form. We can also couple it with a appropriate commentary. Then comes the tracker. Sometimes the audit committee may want a pictorial graphical representation of the conclusion or the action tracker report. At the same, many a times we also couple it with a tabular form of tracker. So in the tabular form of tracker, as I informed in my earlier slides, these are the key components that we should be capturing in the tracker. So first of all, the most important one is the audit areas. Which are the audit areas? So here, this is one of the illustrative tracker. It's a hypothetical tracker, nothing to do with the real life actual report that we would have issued. But yes, quite a few of the action tracker report we issue in the similar format. The quantification, the numbers, and the areas will be changing. However, this is just one illustration that I have given. The areas may depend on the scope that you have come across or the critical findings that you have come across. So those needs to be listed towards the left hand column. So here, like we included freights and logistics. So in one of our clients, we had very serious observation on the freight and logistics function. There were certain, like, revenue leakages happening. There was certain overbooking of the cost happening. There was certain, like, kickback and all happening, or the favoritism of the vendor was happening. So not only it was kind of an internal audit finding, but it was also leading towards the fraud risk. So those findings were categorized the high risk finding. And we had recommended certain recommendations so that these kind of process loopholes could be plugged in, and the risk that the process was exposed to could have been mitigated with the implementation of our recommendations by way of implementation of additional mitigating controls, which management agreed as well. So that is what, we included in the tracker. Inventory is very, very significant area in respect of any manufacturing concern. And definitely, in case inventory management will be a part of the internal audit scope, and you will be performing certain areas, certain procedures on that. In case if you come across any findings, and also that we can cover under this particular head. Similarly, manufacturing overheads, there are a lot of opportunities of, bypassing the process or management override of controls and all. So in case if we have come across any findings there which has been agreed by the management and which has been agreed for taking the corrective action by the management and the top level management, so those kind of things can be covered here. Audit of scrap sale is another critical area where a lot of misappropriation of the authority or management override of control is observed. So there also, like, if the appropriate controls are not in place, which are leading to the fraud risk, or which are leading to the significant risk, or which are leading to the revenue leakages, or the statutory regulatory non-compliances, so those can be covered and those can be listed. And the statutory and the legal compliances, certainly any management will be skeptical for these kind of observation, if at all those are leading to the non-compliance with the laws and regulations. If these are like there is a delay in filing the challan or obtaining the challan or the documentation, then it will be categorized as a low risk item, and they may have they may either want to implement it, they may not be wanting to implement it. But yes, if there is a threat of non-compliance with the laws and regulations, certainly it will be categorized as a high risk finding, and then reported as such. And the agreement with the management for taking the corrective action in line with the recommendation of the internal auditors will be performed. So here in the tracker, what I have captured is, because currently the financial year 22-23 is going on and the internal audit for the current period is going on, I have just customized it that what areas were covered in the prior year, and from the prior year, which is financial year 2021-22, what are the action points that are agreed for the implementation. So that means in these areas, there are 8 action points that were agreed for the implementation, and we found that either these are high risk or these are medium risk, and that's why we would want to capture this in our tracker based on the discussion and agreement with the management, and also based on exercising our own professional skepticism and the judgment. Then to what extent or to what level the recommendation or the corrective actions have been implemented by the management. So if I am going to make this presentation to the audit committee somewhere in the month of August, where we are performing a quarterly internal audit. So here we have captured the actions that has been implemented by the management till June, which could be audited by us in July, and then could be concluded for reporting by us in the month of August, as and when the management, the company's audit committee is happening, the quarterly audit committee is happening. So here the flow is, out of 8 open recommendation at the beginning of the year, coming from the prior audit year, 3 were concluded during the course of the current internal audit, 4 were under implementation, and 1 particular recommendation was not due, because there the management did not agree for the timelines, and those risk was categorized as a low risk. So that is why we as internal auditors also did not insist for the implementation of the corrective action in the near future. If I read this tally, so out of the 8 issues, 3 were concluded in the first quarter of the next financial year, which is 22-23, and 4 were under implementation, where management would have sought, or management has sought, the revised timelines. If the revised timelines has been sought by the management, we should be communicating that to the senior management, that earlier agreed timelines was X date. Now they have come with a request for the X plus n number of days, and this is a reason for what they have been requesting for this, and this is a new timeline that has been agreed with the respective process in charge or the process owner. Then there is any finding or the open issue that is not due for implementation, because that is pending confirmation of the date from the management. So that is also covered here. In respect of the quarterly audits, if something is committed for implementation towards the year end, then in the initial 3 quarters, it will be coming under the not due, because the implementation itself is in the 4th quarter. So in the first 3 quarters presentation against the particular observation, it will be coming as a not due. And then we further tally it that out of 8, 3 are concluded. So the remaining 5 are there. Out of 5, it will be very, very relevant for the information of the management. How many are the high risk and how many are the medium risk? As a management, anybody would want that all the high risk corrective actions are taken on a timely basis as per the agreed timelines. There are no overdues. So if you come across any overdues which you feel is not reasonable, definitely you can communicate your viewpoint, opinion to the senior management. If you feel that the reason for the delay happening in implementation of a particular recommendation in respect of a high risk audit finding, in that case, again, you can pass on your assurance to the management or your comfort to the management that yes, this particular recommendation, the company is taking time because there are certain system or the process or the application system that needs to be updated, and that is taking little time because it is not completely in the hands of the company's management. So those kind of your evaluation of the delay can also be communicated to the senior management, which will give them a lot of comfort that an independent internal auditor or independent consultant is confirming whether the delay is reasonable or it is not a reasonable delay. Coming to in the tracker, coming to the findings, because as I informed you, this is the tracker prepared considering that it's a quarterly internal audit happening and the quarterly reporting to the audit committee or the board of directors happening. So here during the year 22-23, what all processes have been covered in the internal audit, how many findings were agreed for the implementation, and against those findings, how many have already been implemented. So that brief overview also is captured in this tracker. So it is covering the agreed for implementation action points for the last financial year, as well as the current first quarter. And now we are moving on to the presentation for the second quarter. So this is the action tracker report or the slide for the presentation that we are going to make to the audit committee for the second quarter of the current financial year. Then we do a total tally of overall how many observations for the current period as well as for the earlier periods were due for implementation. So in the current case, carry forward observation from the last year were 8. The due for the current year are 27, and which aggregates to 35 in totality. So 35 is 100% of the population of the internal audit observations or the actions, those were agreed for implementation by the management. Out of which, how many have been implemented? That is to year wise. So relating to earlier year, 3 observations are already 3 actions are already implemented. Relating to the current year, 8 out of 8 are completely implemented. So we then inform that 86% of the agreed action pointers have been implemented. So this kind of analysis, evaluation, conclusion, when you present to the audit committee, it gives them a lot of comfort that yes, the management is conscious, the management is serious for taking the corrective actions. At the same time, somebody independent of the company and the management is vouching for the same. Then in the overall tally, there is 11% of the observation of the actions, those are under implementation. And in detail, further you can throw light on that. What are the 4 observations? What is the revised timelines that I will be covering in the succeeding tracker. So this kind of reporting can be done to the management. And you can just imagine the amount of comfort that the those charged with the governance or the board of directors, be it the audit committee, will be getting if it is coming from an independent internal auditor. At the same time, your audit risk is getting mitigated because you have not missed out on any of the critical audit finding that is still open for implementation. I move on to the next slide, where I have taken the further elaboration of the overall summary that we have summarized in the previous slide. So here we give a proper details of the not due and under implementation pointers or the action tracker pointers. So if something is not due, certainly management will not be that much conscious that since it is not due, so that's why it has not been implemented. I have just given a hypothetical example where we as an internal auditors, we had recommended them and these kind of observations were very, very common when the Companies Act was newly introduced with respect to updation of articles of association or in certain cases even the memorandum of associations. So here it has been categorized as a medium risk finding which is not due, where the management has not agreed on the timelines. So this kind of like response is given by the management, and since the timeline is not agreed, so that's why we have categorized that as a not due item. With respect to the other items, I have captured here the revised target date. You can also capture here the originally agreed timelines, the revised target date, and the number of overdues. But that depends upon what your what is the expectation set by the board or the audit committee with you. If they would want to always be reminded of that, what was the originally agreed timelines and what is the revised timelines, and to what extent the implementation is overdue. If they want all this piece of information as well quantified and presented to them, you can make those also included in the tracker. Generally, management is okay if we just inform them verbally, and in the tracker we include the revised timelines and all. So so these few of the illustrative observations I had captured here, and against these observations the risk rating has been captured, so that management can take a conscious decision, something which has been revised, whether they are agreeing to the revised timelines or no. As an internal auditors, we have agreed with the management, and we are saying that yes, we are okay with they implementing this with a revised timeline of say September 22. But the top management may want to prioritize this. In that case, we may have to take a note of this, and then accordingly we have to follow up if the timelines have been preponed by the senior management. So these are in respect of the certain I try to make it connected with the previous tracker, where we mentioned that there were certain observations which is pending implementation. So observations from the procurement to pay, from disposal of the scrap of freight and logistics, etc., along with the risk rating and the reason, and the corrective action that the management has agreed, and the responsible person. So again, all these names are hypothetical names. These are nothing to do with the actual audit finding or the actual audit auditee. But yes, these are the things that we should be capturing when we are making a presentation to the audit committee or to the board of directors. With this, I conclude my findings, my presentation on SIA 390 with respect to monitoring and reporting on the prior audit issues. I'm happy to take up any questions, any clarifications that you want. If you want to ask it now, happy to take it now. If you want to communicate it to me over email or subsequently later on, I am absolutely fine to address that as well.
Any questions anybody can ask right now? I think, ma'am, you have covered absolutely in a great manner. So we do not have any doubts to the participants. So on behalf of WRC, ICA, Saurabh Ajmera, Regional Council member, want to give you a big thank for your sparing your valuable time with us and make your availability with us. So it's really a big pleasure for all of us to have you on WRC as a speakers. And we are looking forward more and more opportunity, and that complete presentation was insightful, greatly insightful, and great in terms of knowledge also. So a big thank you on behalf of WRC and all the participants.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you everyone for joining over here.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.